Hi ho, Silver! Look who's back in voiceover. Well, you actually can't look because it's voiceover. But I'm here to talk about Harbinger of Justice by Andrew Watson. Let's go. Hey, so I am actually one of the very first people to read and review this book on Goodreads. This is from BookTuber. He's a fantasy BookTuber, Andrew Watson. He's a redhead. He has a Edinburgh accent, my little American accent, Edinburgh. I don't say Edinburgh because I'm not annoying. Anyway, this book, he calls it an epic fantasy. I would classify it, I don't think the story was really that epic, but it was atmospheric. So I think it's like Middle Eastern or Egyptian inspired. And when I read it, it was like 101 degrees outside, and the Dallas steam pit that is our summer, so it was kind of cool to see other characters struggling in the heat. Obviously, it's a different kind of heat, desert heat versus, Dallas, which I always say we have the heat of Phoenix with the humidity of Orlando, which is a little bit of an exaggeration, maybe minus that by like 15%, and that's summer in Dallas, where it doesn't cool off at night. But it does cool off in Andrew's book, and it is based around the shadow magic. Some people can get like a spirit, whether it's evil or nice is dependent, so it can be either a good spirit or a bad spirit attached to their shadow. It's a whole different person, lives inside their shadow, and can speak inside the character's head. And this book probably had the best opening sentence of any book I've ever read. It was something to the degree of Kieran ran further, waiting for the voice in his head to speak again. Such a great opening sentence because it tells us so much with so little. That being said, that was definitely the high point of the first half of the novel. I will say this novel is structured very, very well. It's got a very solid 3-act structure. However, before the midpoint, a whole lot happens before the story really goes in one direction. It's like flying around in a bunch of different directions, and then finally it clashes at the 50% point. And it was just really confusing to read. We've got two main characters. We've got Naya and we've got Ray. And then we've got our boy Kieran, who comes in the prologue and then later at the 50% point. The main gripe I had with this story is that there was just way too much showing and not enough telling. So in this world, a character, depending on how wealthy they are, they will have more letters to their name. So Naya only has 3 letters, so she's poor. Kieran has 4. It's spelled like Ryan, but I'm saying Kyan or Kyan, Kyan, 4 letters, so he was wealthy. And this isn't something that the author just kind of trusts us to figure out ourselves. He just tells us instead of letting us come to our own conclusion. So that was a little bit meh, but when we get to the halfway point, there's a very striking image where the entire novel just completely stops. And we are stuck with this image of a man on a roof with a jackal mask, and he takes off his mask. That's all I'm gonna say. And it just felt like the story completely ground to a halt, which is a good thing in this point because the story was moving so fast. It needed that slowdown moment, and right then, it just felt like that scene went on for an eternity. But it didn't. It was fairly short, and it very much, the imagery and the moments reminded me of the part in the movie 1917 where they're singing Wayfaring Stranger, which, side note, I don't know why a British company would sing an old Southern American folktale, but we won't go into that. Or he's sitting against the tree and we go close in on his eyes and we hear that song in the background. That's how striking this image of a man taking off his mask was. And then at that point, we move toward an underdog story of the Underlings trying to overthrow the Empire. Very, very basic. The stuff we love. You know, an underdog story, a little militia coming together to take down the rich pricks, you know? And the big complaint I had is there was just so much going on up until that point. And that's basically it. I'm giving this 3 stars because the first half of the novel was just so disjointed, so many things go on, and the shadow magic doesn't really come out until that halfway point. So if you are reading this and you are struggling in the first half, at least make it to that moment I'm talking about where the man takes off his mask on the roof. That is where this story becomes incredibly more confident, incredibly more pointed and zoned in on a specific goal. And I don't know, because I'm experienced in fantasy, but I'm not like super experienced, and this is the first in a trilogy. I don't know if this is eventually going to end up as one of those trilogies where people are like, oh my god, it's so good, but you have to get past the first book. Kind of like I've heard about Stormlight, like Stormlight's amazing, but you gotta get past the first half of the first book and then it'll be great. So I don't know if this, I kind of have the feeling, obviously it's dependent on which books come out next, but I have a feeling that this is going to be just one of those series that is really good, but the first half of the first book is its weakest point. So that's it. Solid 3 stars. I liked it, but it had some issues. So get yourself, it's on Kindle Unlimited, somehow find a way to read this and decide for yourself. So that's it for me. Keep reading, keep writing, keep loving words, and I'll see you next time. Bye!